America, and welcome to the Glenn Beck program. Well, I've just been awakened from my Thanksgiving food coma, back in the saddle and ready to take on a few things. The press, the president, the current president, not the next president, and Fidel Castro. We begin there right now. Hello, America. I cannot take what people are saying about Fidel Castro. The White House won't judge the, quote, towering figure of Fidel Castro. I guess history is going to have to judge him. Well, history has already judged him. I don't know what we're expecting to find out 100 years from now that we don't know about 1959, 1962, 1970, 1980, 1990. I'm not sure what historians are supposed to find that are going to make this man into a great man. Castro took over Cuba in 1959. His right-hand man, you might have seen on the T-shirts or hats or posters around many Democratic headquarters and around college campuses everywhere. Che. They killed an awful lot of people. They promised an end to corruption. They said they were going to uphold the values of free speech and private property. Instead, Castro imprisoned, tortured, and murdered thousands of people. In fact, he imprisoned and tortured political prisoners at a higher rate than Stalin did during his reign of great terror. We're all pretty clear on who Stalin is, aren't we? How about Hitler? Fidel Castro murdered more Cubans in his first 3 years in power than Hitler murdered Germans in his first 6.
Is that per capita? Yeah, it's got to be, right?
Guevara, the main executioner, killed everyone who was in opposition, journalists, poets, homosexuals. They were sent to labor camps. Others were just executed by the firing squad. Some of them, Che executed himself. What is it that we're supposed to find out? Are we supposed to find out later that he took a country that was free, that was dynamic, and threw it into third world poverty? Is that what we're supposed to find out? Here's what historians will print 100 years from now when we get far enough away from the people who are currently in charge of the world. When we get away from the dishonest journalists, when we get away from the dishonest media, the dishonest elite, the dishonest politicians, the professors, and the current crop of pseudo-historians, no matter how many dictators die, there is always Hollywood, the media, the politician, and the educational system that will keep the killer's viewpoint alive in the hearts of new dupes. Authoritarianism is on the rise all throughout the world. It's happening everywhere. And it's happening in all shapes and all sizes. Fascism, communism, Islamicists, They're all dictators. They all will spell death to their people. And they all have one thing in common: social justice. You listen to all of them, the fascists, the Islamists, the communists, they all will claim social justice. What they're really claiming is socialism, the philosophy of Karl Marx. That's the root of this evil. It has been around with many different names for a very long time. Some of the early settlers here in America tried to do it. It ended in cannibalism. They did it in the name of God. But Karl Marx really put a new and fresh and evil face on it. For anybody who is in school now or has graduated, anybody really under 40, you may not have learned this in school, but this is what World War II was really all about. The argument between National Socialism and international socialism. The real push was either Russia or something like Germany or Mussolini. That's all it was about. And everyone in the world bought into it except for Winston Churchill. He was the only staunch anti-socialist, anti-communist in World War II, which is why now, if you go over to the United Kingdom, 75% of those under 30 have no idea who he is. But you'll find a lot of those people wearing a Che t-shirt. You'll find a lot of those people saying, wow, history will correct the wrongs of Fidel Castro. He was a great hero. Who's this Winston Churchill? You can see the slide. It's happening again. And it always happens the same way. I spent my week, last week, reading about the end of the gold standard and the way the central banks rebalanced everything in the 1920s and 30s.
What a coincidence.
Who didn't? I know. I will tell you, it is coming again.
Thanksgiving tradition.
These people have not learned any lessons at all. History does not repeat itself, but it certainly rhymes. And it's happening again. And we will go to war again. The world will go to war. And I fear millions more will die for the false choices of Marxism, fascist Marxism, international Marxism, national Marxism, Islamic Marxism. I want you to understand they're all the same. A national socialist is just as deadly as an international communist. As a Marxist Islamist is. It's the same ideology. Each is going to teach its followers that it's this group or the other group that's stopping the world from coming together in peace, love, new autobahns, fair banking, or the end of the great Satan. But it's the same ideology. And those who killed all of the artists and poets are the ones that the new poets now extol as great freedom fighters. It's sickening. Those who were tortured and gunned down by anti-capitalists have new anti-capitalists selling their murderer T-shirts, the Mao purses, and the Che hats, all in the name of anti-capitalism. Castro only lost his battle with time. That's what's so despicable. This murderer ran free, raped and pillaged an entire country and people since 1959. and the world was muted. Here's a guy who brought us closer to nuclear annihilation than any other human on the planet. And the press says we're just going to have to wait and see how history judges this tall revolutionary figure. He should have received a bullet in the head. Unfortunately, God will have to pay him back for the suffering and the murder and the debauchery, because the only battle he faced here was time. And in the time that he lost his life, the ideas that brought his murder spree to fruition, Marxism, has been taken off of life support. And because of the media and the leftist politicians, and worse yet, those in our educational system, it's been taken off of life support, and Marxism has been sent back home after seemingly making a full recovery. Why are we celebrating Castro's battle that was lost to time? The war is being lost. At this time, our sponsor is My Patriot Supply. Well, as our new government forms, threats to our financial stability, our national security, our constitutional rights have not been abated. I can't wait to talk to you a little bit about my displeasure with the Washington Post. It is up to you to take care of yourself. Only you are going to be really responsible in the end. You're going to make all the difference to you. Are you prepared for a crisis? Are you prepared
for
FEMA,
though? What about,
well, I know FEMA. Yeah, FEMA will be,
right? We've seen that time and time.
Oh, they'll be right there for you.
Yeah.
A job loss, a natural disaster. Self-reliance isn't always easy, but fortunately, starting an emergency food supply is with My Patriot Supply. Right now, they're practically giving away their 4-week food supply for $99. That's 140 adult servings of delicious meals, including drinks and snacks and desserts. All you have to do is call 800-200-7163. You can also order online with preparewithglenn.com. They are $99, and they are limited and shipped for free. I know nobody wants to see this under their Christmas tree, but I have done it myself for $99. It is a great gift, especially...
I love that.
I would love that, too.
Love that.
Especially for your kids who have moved out, started their own, whatever. $99. This, I think, is an unbelievable Christmas gift.
It takes care of, like we've talked about this many times, it takes care of about 95% of any eventuality. You know, everything other than like a Walking Dead scenario.
Yeah, I mean, it really does. Right. Or extended job loss.
Yes.
You survived for almost a year. On your food supply because of a job loss. But 4 weeks, that takes care of almost everything.
Right.
Anyway, it's $99. Call 800-200-7163. 800-200-7163. Preparewithglenn.com. There's a second meeting with Mitt Romney. Is there a chance that Mitt Romney is the Secretary of State?
I mean, I tend to not believe it. I tend to not believe it.
It would be, to me, it would signal that he doesn't hold grudges. It would be a nice signal to see.
I mean, look, yeah, that's a pretty good indication because Romney was stronger than anybody, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Romney was nastier about him than probably even us. I mean, because... You know, who cares if a bunch of radio yahoos are saying it? Yeah. Romney was the nominee 4 years prior.
Romney
That's a big deal.
It was a big deal.
To me, if I'm Trump, I don't want Romney. And if I'm Romney, I don't want Trump. You know, there's a part of, while I understand Mitt Romney is a well-known figure and probably would be certainly more balanced than like if you took some random guy from the Trump loyalist camp and put him in that role. But it's like you have to have somebody who actually agrees with the president's agenda out there doing the work.
Yes.
And he does not. It's like you're just assigning another president to this role. Oh, we actually wanted Mitt Romney, so let's all root for him to be Secretary of State because we wanted him to win in 2012. It's like, well, no. I mean, Donald Trump, it makes no sense to me for Donald Trump to pick Mitt Romney. They don't agree on things.
Unless, but this is not, let me go back here. Did you read Mike Lee's article on populism and conservatism?
I didn't think I did, no.
He said that these two can get along. In fact, the last great populist president, he said it worked wonderfully. Who do you think he said was the last great populist president?
Well, if it's worked wonderfully,
Reagan?
it could have to be Reagan.
Reagan, yeah.
It's the last time anything worked wonderfully.
Yeah, he said it was Reagan. He said he believes Reagan wasn't as conservative as he was a populist. And he said, but he surrounded himself with conservatives. And conservative thought, I don't believe it because I've read his own handwritten speeches and his policies.
You listen to him, his speeches on things like healthcare from the 60s.
Yeah, I know. I know.
That is hardcore conservatism even today.
I know. But I'm just telling you what Mike Lee said. And he said he surrounded himself with conservatives. And the conservatives moved him in the right direction.
Right, but again,
this is what the conservatives said that they were going to get. I don't know. I'd love to see this happen. So far, have you guys seen many of the appointments that you disagree with?
No.
I mean, his
not
appointment
so far.
today of HHS secretary is great.
Yeah.
Guy who was wildly anti-Obamacare.
Yeah, I mean, I think from what I've read, his proposal for what he wanted to do with Obamacare is very similar to what Paul Ryan wanted to do with it, it's just interesting. The same thing with the Secretary of Education, which, again, I think has, generally speaking, good conservative principles when it comes to education. But what Jeb Bush was thrilled by it.
Yeah,
the reason we got rid of Jeb Bush, or we didn't want Jeb Bush, in theory, was partially because of his education program. He was thrilled by that appointment. It was like his top choice. And you go through them.
I don't know what is happening.
You've seen
I
so
can't
far.
figure out the pattern yet.
No, I mean, certainly many loyalists are getting positions, which you'd expect. I mean, I would expect that.
Yes.
Like Flynn, I think is a terrible appointment. I don't like that one at all. I wouldn't be appointing many Democrats, but I understand he was a big time loyalist. Sessions, I think, is generally speaking pretty good, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, he generally, I didn't necessarily agree with Sessions during the campaign, but he's been pretty conservative over his career. He'll probably do a good job at that, But, and a price for HHS secretary seems pretty good. Again, I think generally conservative. Romney to me doesn't make any sense. I don't think it makes sense for Trump, and I don't think it makes sense for Romney. It
does if you go back to the idea that Trump doesn't really want to do all this. He wants somebody to handle it. Romney was the only guy right on Russia. However, what doesn't make sense is they don't agree on Russia.
Not at all.
At all.
I mean, like the principle of Romney's foreign policy is an exact disagreement with Trump's. I mean, it makes no sense other than the fact that he either wants to just torture him or look like he's, building a bridge.
Really, really torn on a solution to a problem. We're going to get back to the Secretary of State thing here in a second. But I have a solution to a problem that I really don't want to happen, but at the same time, I really do want it to happen. Here's the problem. People magazine has reported now that there's a number of prominent fashion designers who have refused to work with Melania Trump because they do not approve of her husband's policies, language, and lifestyle. My solution. I believe Donald Trump and Melania should sue those fashion designers to force them to make dresses for a woman they disagree with on her lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously
Yep.
Discrimination.
Yep. It's discrimination.
Yeah.
You can't. Just because of their political belief, just because of their lifestyle, you're not going to make something. You can't do that.
They need to be fined $137.
Yes, they do.
They need to be sued, and all of those designers must be forced to make dresses for her. Just
so.
saying.
And actually apply their artistic talent to it.
Yes.
Not just, produce what she designs.
No. I'm not saying she can go in, and I'm sure she can go buy a dress off the counter. Over the counter, she can go into,
of course.
She can go and buy something, from Neiman Marcus that is done by a designer. No. She needs to engage them to make something specific for the inauguration.
Yeah, absolutely. They
agree.
have to be forced to do that because if not, society breaks down.
Well, and I'll tell you,
There's no other way.
Conscience the right of conscience doesn't extend much beyond the walls of your home. And
exactly right.
Yes.
Where have I heard that before? If I haven't heard that someplace big,
I wonder if
I should.
Senator of the United States, Tammy Baldwin.
We should write that down because that's good.
Debbie Wasserman Schultz. But, I mean, in your workplace, you don't have any right to conscience. I mean, big businesses do, but individual people
do not. They do not.
Those designers,
so they should be forced to make her inaugural dress.
And
they should.
And after they make that dress, they should be forced to go to sensitivity training.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen.
Yeah, and probably never be able to work in the industry again. I mean, just to throw that out there, probably shouldn't.
Boy, I didn't want to go that far, but now that you have.
Yeah, I mean, it's out there, and I think we need to answer.
So, may I just point out, the reason why I'm torn on this is because I think this is a horrible idea. I think you should be able to do business with whoever you want to do business with. And if you have something that says, no, I don't want to provide my service for that individual, you should be able to do that.
It's particularly if there's I think anything. I mean, and it happens all the time with liberals. I mean, they constantly
all the time.
I mean, they have entire states that people are saying, I will not travel to
all the time.
But again,
state because of their policy.
If they were to be forced, that's not as bad because that's just a political thing. We're talking about a religious belief.
Yes.
On the other,
your political belief, by the way, is not protected.
Right.
Your religious
belief
is protected.
So
they'll say, well, we're talking about homosexuality. Yes, we're talking about religious belief.
Right.
So, yeah, play nice with each other. But I think he should sue.
That'd be great.
That would be interesting.
Yes, it would be. It would be. Okay, so there's a couple of names that have been thrown out for Secretary of State. One is the big backers of Donald Trump, the Mercer family. They're the ones who have really put this whole train on the tracks. They were the ones who funded Donald Trump.
Also the ones that brought in Kellyanne Conway, too.
Oh, yeah. They are the Koch brothers, if you will, of this presidency. They're the people who stay behind. They're the ones who have financed Breitbart. They are big donors.
And we should point out, but both Kellyanne Conway and the Mercer family were both big Cruz people at the beginning. They started a Cruz super PAC, which is where Kellyanne Conway worked.
Well, it was a super PAC that really didn't spend any money, but
it was.
It was an odd one that had some questions.
But it eventually flipped to essentially support Trump.
Yes, surprisingly, yes.
Yes, but my point is that they were Cruz supporters early on, and that did change at one point. But I mean, they were. That's an interesting dynamic because that's the same thing with Kellyanne Conway. She was she ran the Cruz.
Yes, I know.
And then moved.
I know her. I like her.
Yeah, she's been in Republican circles for a long time.
So anyway, they want John Bolton.
Oh, really?
The Mercers are in love with John Bolton. And so that's why John Bolton is in that pool, is because that's a payback for the Mercers. Now, there's another payback name in there, and it's Rudy Giuliani.
And Giuliani, let's look at the Trump world for a minute here. Giuliani deserves it more than anybody. This guy was the most fierce loyalist of this entire campaign when it got into.
Nobody was bigger. Sean Hannity.
Well, but yeah,
Yes.
Sean Hannity.
Yeah, but I mean,
Yes, but you're not going to give him Secretary of State.
right?
Maybe
he's
press
a media
secretary.
personality. I'm talking about like he actually worked on the campaign. Giuliani actually, when it came down to the whole situation where the Billy Bush tapes came out, that next weekend, all of the shows, as they are called, had people scheduled from all over the Trump campaign. All of them canceled. It was just Giuliani who went out. And Giuliani went out and defended at every turn Trump throughout this entire process. If anybody has earned enough Trump bucks to be able to pay for the Secretary of State in loyalty, it is Rudy Giuliani.
Especially since Rudy Giuliani didn't have to. He had a great legacy, had a great career.
And that's a difference between someone like Chris Christie. Chris Christie is
was kicked to the curb.
absolutely kicked to the curb. You probably shouldn't put the candidate's son or father, the candidate's son-in-law's father in prison. That's usually a negative.
Yes.
But beyond that, Christie, you could understand the calculus of Chris Christie. He ran for president and he lost. He's got a 20% approval rating in New Jersey. His legacy's ruined there. It made sense for him to go all in on Trump because
his conservative path was over.
Yeah, he's got nothing left.
Got nothing.
Rudy Giuliani's another story. Rudy Giuliani still had the legacy of America's mayor. I mean, he really did have, he had that still together. And while he was never going to be president again, he had a legacy to protect. And he went all in. He went all in with that. He used every ounce of his credibility to get Donald Trump elected. And, honestly, I'm surprised that isn't being rewarded with the position he wants.
Well, it may be.
And maybe it will be.
I mean, the campaign officials say he's the lead guy.
And
oh, really?
It seems like what...
Yeah.
I think he'd be pretty good. I'm torn because he's a big progressive. But I like Rudy Giuliani because he gets things done. But I don't like the way he gets things done because he gets them done the progressive way.
And, he was criticized, I think rightly, many times for kind of just saying whatever in the campaign to defend the candidate, which, is his role as a surrogate to some point. But you forget that the guy actually ran one of the biggest economies in the world. I mean, he's not an incompetent moron. He was
not at all.
He's done some things I think that have hurt his legacy, but he wouldn't be. He's not. It's not like putting some guy from Breitbart in that role. I mean, Rudy Giuliani is.
Well, first of all, the Secretary of State is, I think, the co-president.
Right.
It is the co-president.
I mean, think of what they've done. When Hillary Clinton lost the nomination in 2008, she got Secretary of State. Then they're like, who else can we have? Oh, how about the guy who lost in 2004? John Kerry gets Secretary of State. Now they're talking about, what about that guy who lost in 2012? We'll give him Secretary of State potentially, Mitt Romney.
Secretary of State, Mitt Romney could, on the world stage, look more presidential than Donald Trump.
Could? He would. And I don't think Trump would like that.
I don't think Trump would like that.
And I think the whole thing is a big act. I think Trump likes the idea. He's been promoting, the leaks from the campaign he's been reading Team of Rivals. This is what he wants. Kellyanne Conway.
Not really.
Right. I agree. However, that's what's coming out of the campaign.
Team of Rivals. Somebody may have talked to him about Team of Rivals.
Exactly. And he may like the concept of it.
Yes.
However, I think what he likes more than the concept of Team of Rivals is the fact that we think he likes the concept of Team of Rivals. He likes I'll come out, I'll talk to anybody, I don't care. And then he sends out Kellyanne Conway, who I don't know how you can believe Kellyanne Conway went out there on her own and was just like, you know what? Donald Trump shouldn't pick Mitt Romney. He's an idiot for doing it. It's going to piss off all of his supporters. It's like Kellyanne Conway has been way too loyal a soldier to go out and box in the president-elect of the United States out of a position of Secretary of State, one of his biggest appointments. I mean, I think there's some message being sent there, and it might be that he wants to look like I have overwhelmed all of my subordinates and I just think this is the right choice. Or it could just be he wants to give voice to those concerns, to say that, all of my supporters are going to be pissed off about this, but I'm going to do it anyway. And then at the last second, they talked me out of it. We'll see which one it winds up.
Whatever it is, it's being very well played.
But obviously, what they want you to believe, which is Kellyanne Conway just came out of nowhere and just, she's the crazy one. She just can't. Kellyanne Conway, who's been in Republican circles and was the respectable arm of this campaign the entire time, just can't deal with Mitt Romney. And we're supposed to believe she's the one that is against Mitt Romney in that camp. It's so ridiculous. But I mean, it's part of the theater of it.
Can I tell you, and I want to talk to you about theater on the left. Theater on the left is unbelievable. We'll get to that here in just a second. Blinds.com. Picking out new blinds and installing them can seem intimidating, but if you have a screwdriver and a measuring tape at home, you can replace your broken or dated blinds and install new custom blinds from Blinds.com. Pat, Stu, myself, we have all used Blinds.com over the years. Tanya and I used a design consultant who was a very big help. So, we pay for our blinds. I paid for the service. This is not something that I just want to put these in. I'm paying for these things because I use the service that I tell you about. I believe in them. 100% satisfaction guarantee. So if you mismeasure, pick the wrong color, they'll remake the blinds for free. I'm not a do-it-yourselfer. I'm not that kind of guy. My wife is much more of a do-it-yourselfer. We got online and I said, honey, let's just pick out these because I had promised her that we were going to redo our bedroom about 3 years ago. Let's just get online and look. We started looking. I saw up at the top that you can get the design consultant. I said, let's schedule an appointment. It was going to be a hassle. I had this first free Saturday and I don't know how long. Within 30 minutes, we were on with their top design consultant. It was all through Tanya. They didn't know who I was, that I was involved at all. It wasn't until everything was finished that I told them, by the way, I'm Glenn Beck. And so I wanted the experience that you'd get. And it is fantastic. Blinds.com. Right now, Cyber Monday sale is extended through December 1st. When is that? When is the 1st of December? When you buy one blind, you're going to get the second for 50% off with the promo code Beck. One blind, get the second 50% off. Use the promo code Beck, get 50% off your second blind, but only until December 1st. That's Blinds.com. Promo code Beck. Rules and restrictions may apply. See Blinds.com for details.
Glenn, I am a conservative in Salem, Oregon, and I've always considered myself conservative GOP Christian. And during this last election cycle, I'd become so disillusioned with the GOP that I ended up leaving the party in the summer and eventually found a home in the Libertarian Party. There are a lot of things that you've said during this cycle that made me feel like you might see some resonance with the Libertarian Party, and I'm wondering what you have to say to people in my situation.
I consider myself a libertarian. I'm not a member of the GOP, and in fact raised money to put them out of business for a while there. So I don't consider myself GOP and do consider myself libertarian. I was a little concerned by the libertarians that ran last time because I thought they were establishment kind of libertarian and pro-government, I should say.
Establishment libertarian. I think the language might blow up with those two words next to each other.
But if you look at Bill Weld and who they were,
to a lot of people within the LP.
Yeah, I mean,
I honestly think there are more establishment Republicans really that want to be running as
correct. And so my problem with the Libertarian Party was they just ran a couple of establishment guys that weren't really truly libertarians. But I think, Chris, you're on the right road. Myself, as the country goes more and more into populism. That's a very dangerous road. Big government and populism. I mean, I saw an article from Stephen Moore where he is now endorsing populism. Stephen Moore,
I saw that,
endorsing populism and a over $1 trillion stimulus package. It's just not going to work.
Very dangerous trend.
Very dangerous.
I think a lot of disenfranchised GOP people who truly are small government constitutional people would find a good home in the LP. And,
I will tell you.
There's some hurdles to overcome for me, but it's been quite a journey.
I will tell you that if more conservatives did join the Libertarian Party, you might have a chance of saving it. Quite honestly, it doesn't feel like anything but a hostile home for a conservative after this last election. At least that's the way I feel. That it's really kind of a hostile place if you're an actual small government person that believes in the values that I believe in, but I don't want to inflict them on other people through government programs. I just believe what I believe, and I celebrate your belief in what you believe.
There you go.
President Obama is quite proud his administration has avoided any major personal scandals.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I don't know if that's exactly true. We'll get to that beginning right now. You want to do something nice with your family for Christmas? May I suggest National Wreaths Across America Day? It is December 17th. Volunteers are asked to place wreaths in honor and remembrance at more than 1,200 locations nationwide. 245,000 wreaths at Arlington National Cemetery alone. This is the 25th year that Wreaths Across America has tried to do this. They have a goal this year to place a wreath at every marker there. That is 245,000 wreaths. As of this morning, they still have 145,000 wreath sponsorships that are needed. Each wreath is $15 to sponsor. And if you want to volunteer, there's 50,000 volunteers that are needed at these locations. You can remember, honor, and teach. Go to wreathsacrossamerica.org, wreathsacrossamerica.org, and find out more information and buy a wreath. Better yet, buy a wreath and then go help them put them out with your kids on the 17th of December. See, there's so much to talk about here. I want to talk to you a little bit about the propaganda of the left, also the incredible statements that the president, of course, doesn't have to go to the funeral now because he did everything he could for Fidel Castro by saying glowing things about him. The press corps trying to get the White House, some in the press corps trying to get the White House to say, bad things about Fidel Castro. No, White House won't do it. And I want to talk to you about really subtle propaganda. Now, there is a story in the Washington Post that we're probably going to get to either today or tomorrow that happened over the weekend about Russian propaganda. And I really want to talk about this because we don't know who this website is that is ratting out the Russian propaganda. But for us to believe that it's not happening is pretty remarkable. First of all, is there anyone within the sound of my voice that doesn't think that the United States does propaganda in the Middle East? That didn't engage in propaganda in the former Soviet Union? That didn't engage up until this administration? Didn't engage in propaganda and tampering in elections in places like Cuba or Venezuela? We all know we do that, right?
You're alleging we've tampered in sovereign nations' affairs?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Wow.
I am pretty clearly, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I know you are too.
You're out there on quite a limb.
Quite a limb. Everybody, both left and right, knows that happens.
Yeah.
And for us to believe that it's not happening here in the United States with Russia is absurd. Absolutely absurd. Now, to the point to where they are knowing accomplices, I don't know. And to have the Washington Post make those charges, you should probably have a named source if you're going to make a charge like that. I'd like to be able to face my accuser if I would be one of the accused. I'd like to know who the accuser is, not some website that's shadowy in and of itself that won't release who owns it, who's funding it, who's involved with it. I think that's pretty shady in and of itself. We'll get into that a little bit more, but I want to give you anybody who doesn't believe that propaganda is used, and anybody who doesn't believe pictures make a difference. I have talked to you off and on, if you're a big fan of the show, and you've ever heard me talk about the time that I went to meet George W. Bush in the White House, you'll remember that I said that I was walking in from the Roosevelt room over to the Oval Office, and George Bush was in the doorframe of the Oval Office with his hand outstretched to shake my hand, and I was presented with a dilemma. Anybody remember what that dilemma was?
I do, yeah. You wanted to look at a painting, I believe?
Yes, and I had never seen this Norman Rockwell painting before, right? I'd never seen this Norman Rockwell painting before. I'm a big fan of Norman Rockwell, and it was sitting right next to the president. And I'm like, oh, man, do I look at him or look at the painting? I really want to look at the painting. And instead, I chose to look at the president and shake his hand and go into the Oval Office, which was wise. On the way out, I looked at the painting. Well, I've been fascinated by this painting. And I know where it hangs in the Oval Office because last year, we had the Oval done. We studied the Oval Office a lot before we decorated that and put that set together. So I know where that painting is and everything else. Well, that painting moved for a Trump visit. And I thought it was curious, but didn't think anything of it until the granddaughter of Norman Rockwell noticed it. Fascinating. George Bush had that painting right outside of the Oval Office, right by the door of the Oval Office. So it was the last thing you saw before you saw the Oval Office. And it's a painting by Norman Rockwell of the arm of the Statue of Liberty with I think it's a black man on scaffolding or what do you call those things that kind of hang down over the sides of buildings where you can wash you sit on the bench.
Right, the window washer.
The window washer thing. Yeah. So as he's washing all of the torch, and it's to show the African-American and the immigrant coming in and the Statue of Liberty and all that stands for. George Bush had it on the outside. Barack Obama moved it to, if you're facing the Resolute desk, it would be on the right-hand side. And he had it just on the side, the right-hand side of the windows behind the Resolute desk. When he came to visit, the painting, which I believe was Martin Luther King, had been taken down and replaced with the Statue of Liberty and placed right in the camera shot. If you were going to take a camera and take a photograph of Donald Trump in the Oval Office, you saw the black man cleaning the torch of the Statue of Liberty.
Behind Trump.
Mm-hmm. So I'm reading this article by Rockwell, the granddaughter of Rockwell. And she said, look, maybe it's just me and only somebody like me who's fascinated by this painting, which was given to the White House by Steven Spielberg back in the 90s. She said, because it's my grandfather's painting, I kind of follow it. Well, because I love it, I kind of followed it too. I didn't put any thought into it. She did. She said, was that propaganda? Now, she happens to agree. She doesn't like Donald Trump and is a fan of Barack Obama. She's very, very liberal. So she happens to think it was a great thing. But her question was, if somebody moved it in the White House and you moved it for that press conference and you didn't think anybody would notice.
And you were trying to make some statement about Trump and immigration and all that kind of stuff.
She said, I noticed it. I got the message.
Right.
And I wonder if that's true. Because I do know that it was moved. I don't know when it was moved.
I think it's almost certainly true. You know that's almost certainly true. Right? If they moved it specifically for that day, and it sounds like they did.
I don't know that. I don't know that.
We don't know when it was moved.
When it was moved. If it was moved on that day, it was definitely moved.
Right.
And if anyone thinks that people don't do that, you're crazy.
And if you
we do that on television all the time. What's behind you? What's behind you? What's behind me?
Yeah.
You know, we do that all the time in television.
Basic set design.
Basic set design. When you have somebody and you want them to look good, you put something behind them that adds gravitas to them. It tells a story about them.
On the other hand, if something behind you that's going to be in a shot is something that could be associated with something, like I remember a specific instance where there was a swastika. It was at the museum. There was a swastika behind you
in Salt Lake City.
Yeah,
and you had brought in. You had all sorts of historical things to show everyone off, and you had one area of dark history. And one, I'll never forget. The visual is very funny in my head because you had somehow acquired some gigantic Nazi flag.
They come from a collection from Brent Ashworth,
right.
who's an amazing collector.
So the local media is there doing interviews with you, and I look over, and all I see is the camera. Your face, behind your face is a giant Nazi flag. I'm like, Glenn, you might want to move over here to do this interview. Because obviously that's not exactly the dynamic you're looking for.
Right.
Even though it's obviously explainable, it's the visual. It's the same thing when we saw this with Barack Obama, when he had magical halos over his head over and over and over again from the media. They took him in the most positive light possible.
Yes.
And so there is a bit of stagecraft that goes into this.
There's a lot of stagecraft.
Now, if it was moved 3 weeks earlier, we'll know, before the election, we'll know it had nothing to do with that. But it would be interesting to track that information down, because if they did move it that day for that picture, you have to believe they're sending a message.
Let me call the White House, find out if they did.
Jeffy, you got a contact over there,
Jeffy?
right?
You can call the White House. See if I can find that article from.
Right in.
Yeah, here it is, from Abigail Rockwell. And so just call and say, you're reading the Abigail Rockwell and wanted to know when that Rockwell painting was moved.
You don't actually think the White House is taking Jeffy's calls, do you? I mean, White Castle doesn't even take.
Call the curator. The curator is a non. I don't know.
White Castle will definitely take his calls.
The White House curator should be non-political, so should be willing to answer that question for you. Whether they're still non-political or not, I have absolutely no idea. All right, our sponsor this half hour is ZipRecruiter. If you are a small business owner, I know what it is like. You are fighting for your life. You're doing everything you can to get your work done and the work of your entire company, and you're short-staffed. It's why you're a small company. You don't necessarily have an HR department. Even if you do, they're swamped if you're a small business person. This is why I like ZipRecruiter. We have hired a lot of people over the last few months, a lot. And we needed to fill some positions and fill the positions with the right people quickly. We used ZipRecruiter, where you can post 100-plus job sites with one single click. You can find any candidate in any city, any industry, nationwide. Then you post. You've had 6 million people that will filter through that are already responding and looking for a job. But then once you post, within 24 hours, the people who are directly responding to your ad come in. You use their interface, and it allows you to sort through people, hire the right person quickly without having to juggle all the phone calls and emails and everything else. You do it all through ZipRecruiter, and you can try it now for free by going to ZipRecruiter.com/Beck. That's ZipRecruiter.com/Beck. ZipRecruiter.com/Beck.
This is the Glenn Beck Program. Mercury.
The key to having a great day starts with having a great night's sleep, and I know because I have a Casper mattress. The Casper mattress was invented with 2 high-tech foams that give you all of the support that you need and guarantee that you get the best night's sleep ever. Time magazine named Casper mattress one of the best inventions of 2015. Casper ships for free in a box so small you won't believe it holds the actual mattress, making it simple to get from your front door to your bedroom. And you try it for 100 nights risk-free. They'll come and pick it up if you don't love it as much as I love mine, and they'll refund every single dime. Once you try it, you're never going to want to sleep on anything else. Having a great day by having a great night's sleep. Casper.com/Glenn. Use the promo code Glenn. $50 off the purchase of your mattress at Casper.com/Glenn. The The promo code is Glenn. Don't forget, $50 off the purchase of your mattress. Casper.com/Glenn.
Is anybody in the Christmas mood?
Trying.
Oh, yeah.
We put up the Christmas tree.
My wife has got the house Christmas.
Yeah, we do too. We put up the Christmas tree. We got a notice from our community. Turn off the Christmas lights until Thanksgiving.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You got to be kidding me.
No, they were very serious about it.
And of course, with an HOA, you can't argue.
Reply with get Beck.
Is that a new rule, though? If that's a new rule, that's a different
Those
thing.
aren't Christmas
I don't
lights.
think
Those
that's
are my yard lights.
There were several people. We were one of them. There were several people that put their lights up way early. I mean, we put our lights up. We put our lights up.
My yard lights. Shut up.
I want them in May. Shouldn't I be able to have my lights up in
It's
May?
America.
If it's in their covenant that you agree to when you come into the neighborhood.
Oh, I'm sure there is. Like, I can't put a flag up in my house, and that drives me crazy.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah.
That is nuts.
Makes me want to buy the property behind my house, just outside of the fence, and put in the largest flagpole known to mankind.
But that would
be crazy.
Right.
That would be almost wasteful to do that.
Fun. But really, really fun.
Are we going to have
that property is for sale now.
Are we going to have a get together when we put up the flagpole?
Well, if we ever do that, just because it would, if I put a flagpole. If I bought that property and put a flagpole there,
so great.
It would be seen throughout because it's on the high point of the complex or whatever it's called.
A long way.
It would be like a car dealership on the golf course.
Oh, we got to have a bigger one than that. We got to put a bigger one than that.
A bigger one than the car dealership?
Like those monument flags, man.
That I don't know if you've been to Texas, but that's what all the car dealerships have. That's the one thing about Texas is they like their flags.
Oh,
yes,
definitely.
They like their flags.
Definitely.
Let me go to Josh in North Carolina. Hi, Josh. You're on the Glenn Beck program.
Good morning, Glenn.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. I wanted to tell you a little. I'll make it quick, but a little story.
Okay.
A buddy of mine. Let me start it this way. I was a very, very progressive liberal, almost to the point of communism. I believe everybody should be, in the wage gap and all that stuff. So a buddy of mine that I've known since I got out of the Army, he came to me one day and gave me your book, and one of your books, and he said,
which one?
You've got to read this, Liars.
Okay.
And he said, you've got to read this book. And I said, oh, come on, really? And no, you've got to read this book. You'll never believe some of the stuff that's in it. So he told me the first chapter to go to, and it was in August, so I can't remember, to be honest, what chapter it was. But it was the part of the book where it talked about how they help with prohibition.
Oh, yeah.
And how they put poison in the alcohol.
Yeah.
To find out the tracking routes of where it was going.
Yes.
So I read that, and my jaw hit the floor. And
you looked it up too, didn't you? You didn't believe it.
I did.
Yeah.
And the day I finished that book in 3 days. It was the most amazing book I've ever read. And I said, I've got to do more research on this, and I've got to find out who this Glenn Beck guy is. So I went to YouTube, and I searched your name, and I found a video that you did on the Blaze. I don't know how long ago it was, but you spoke to a guy that was an alcoholic, and you talked to him about I forget who said it. It was to Peter Carr. And the statement was, set reason firmly in her seat and question with boldness the very existence of God. For if there is a God, he must rather honest questioning over blindfolded fear. I will never forget that statement, because that statement brought me to Christ. I was an atheist before that.
Holy cow.
And I will never, ever be
So you were
the same.
a communist and atheist.
Yes.
And how long ago was this, Josh?
He said
I got
August.
that book on August 15th of this year.
Of this year?
Yeah.
Wow.
I voted for Barack Obama twice. I'm sorry, but I did.
Wow.
Holy cow.
I would have voted for Hillary Clinton with vigor. However, I pulled the lever for Evan McMullen this year.
Wow.
You didn't
And
even
I
go.
have never, ever,
Oh, my
ever.
gosh.
I'm telling you, I want to be as serious as I can with you, Glenn, because this is a dream of mine to speak to you since August. I have never, ever realized the difference. But I thought all conservatives hated me. I thought conservatism was complete hate until I listened to you. Because I read that book and I did research and I found out what the Blaze was. I don't go anywhere else for my news. I listen to the Blaze every morning. I found out who Doc Thompson is. I listen to
That's
Doc
great.
Thompson. I listen to you every single day. I got a subscription on the Blaze now.
Wow.
I've turned my
Josh.
life around because of your book.
Josh, I want you to hang on for just a second.
Fantastic.
That's awesome.
Wow. Thank you so much. May I say one thing? Do not use the Blaze as your only news source. Read everything you can. Question with boldness, even what we tell you. In North Carolina, to hold on, because I think this is a fascinating story. A friend gave him a copy of my book that came out this year called Liars, which I think is a very, very powerful book to share with progressives because it's all history and it takes you through and shows you the progressive movement really, at least some of the supplemental stuff that you can find online, goes all the way back to Martin Luther. I mean,
And Josh said he was progressive. He was an atheist. And this helped turn him around completely.
voted.
I mean, first of all, the open-mindedness to go from that to where he is now is just amazing.
Amazing.
That's astounding.
amazing. A lot of people won't do that because they guard what they believe.
Well, think about it. Is there anything that could turn you to a progressive? I mean, I can't think of.
If I lost my faith, so
Yeah.
I would have to lose my faith because my faith teaches me that all men are created equal and endowed by a creator with certain inalienable rights, so they have their right to live their life.
Yes,
So I'd have
you've
to
got
lose my
agency.
faith
Yeah.
that everyone has a right to their agency and a right to screw their life
You'd really
up.
have to believe in force, right? You'd have to believe.
You'd have to believe that rights don't come from God, and then you'd have to believe that global warming or people are so stupid that they're going to destroy everything.
So we have to fix.
So we have to fix this. We have a right to take away somebody else's right to fix that.
Yeah.
That would change me. That's a tall hurdle.
That's a tall order.
Yeah. Josh.
Yes, sir.
So I'm curious. You read that one chapter, then you went back and you read the whole book, right?
Yes, sir.
And what was it that was challenging you? What was it that opened your eyes or made you say, wait a minute, if this is wrong, then maybe everything else I believe is wrong. How did this happen?
Well, first it was the fact that I had always heard the statement of, I believe it was Stalin, that said, in order to make an omelet, you got to crack a couple eggs.
Yes.
And I never really took that to heart until I read your book. And I realized that it was true that by hook or by crook, a progressive will get whatever they have to get done. And no matter what wake stands behind them or who stands in front of them, it doesn't matter. And what you were talking about just a second ago, if I may, I don't want to veer too far off, but what you were talking a second ago about, what would make you a progressive in your face. The first question that came to my mind, because when I read that book, I was awestruck. And I said, wait, none of this fits without something making it so. What I mean by that is you can't have these rights if they didn't come from anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I read, I said, there's got to be somewhere this starts. So I went and got a pocket copy of the Constitution. And I said, let's start from the beginning.
Geez, Josh, do you realize how remarkable you are?
And rare?
I mean, you are just so rare to A, have the open mind, to B, be willing to challenge the things that you hold dear, to C, then go do the actual work.
But see, the thing
is
is, Glenn,
remarkable.
Don't hold those things dear. But that's the problem, is that they don't know what to believe in. So they believe in nothing but the state. That's what I was. That's where I was. I had nothing to believe in, Glenn. And then I said, okay, these rights come from a creator. And when I watched your video, I said, I have to find that creator. I have to find where this all began. And I went and I grabbed my my uncle's Bible, went over to his house, and I said, I want to read this. So I started in the beginning. And I challenged myself every day to read a chapter. And I couldn't stop.
Wow.
And I've read all the way through the Old Testament, and I'm almost all the way through the Gospels. And I can't stop. I now know that the state is not the Almighty. And I have something now that I can believe in. That's not going to tax me into oblivion.
Josh, I want to meet you someday. I want you to hold on. I want to get your name and address and everything else. I'm going to send you an autographed copy of the book. I might send you some other books, too, that are not necessarily of mine, but you should read. But I'm really impressed with you, Josh. Congratulations.
Thank you. Can I say one more thing, Glenn?
Yes, sir.
I appreciate all the time. Thank you so much. But there's one book that I read after all of these books that done the most for me. And it's kind of obscure. A lot of people have read it. Most probably haven't. It's Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand.
So you...
A lot of reading, man.
You went to Ayn Rand and Atlas
serious
Shrugged.
homework.
Do you have a life? Do you have a job?
Yes,
How did you get through?
Life.
How did you get through Atlas Shrugged?
The Bible.
And the Bible.
Liars.
Well, to be fair.
Since August?
No, I'm not all the way through the Bible.
To be fair, he's not finished with the Bible yet.
Oh, yeah. Sorry,
That's
just
true.
the Old Testament and most of the Gospel.
Well, because, and the reason is because I don't sleep. But I when I start something, there's a drive, a challenge to finish it.
Holy cow. Josh, you and I are so much alike. You remember, Pat, this is the way I was.
Uh-huh.
Once I got onto it, I couldn't stop. I just couldn't stop. You're right on Atlas Shrugged, too. However, do yourself a favor, Josh. Read Anthem. You are going to love Anthem, I would bet, until the very end. And when you read the last couple of pages, then try to put together what you're telling me about the rights coming from God, and then Anthem, because she's an atheist, and she has a very, very different point of view. And Anthem is one of my favorite stories. It's easy. It's not Atlas Shrugged. It's easy. It's quick read. You could read it in a day. But it throws me every single time on the last page. And it's good mental gymnastics to do. Josh, thank you very much. Hold on. I want to get your name and address and way to contact you. I appreciate it.
Wow, that's a lot of work
You are kidding.
in a few months. That's amazing.
That gives me a lot of hope.
Yeah, that's great.
That gives me a lot of hope. Let me go.
One guy from North Carolina.
Judy in Pennsylvania. Hello, Judy. You're on the Glenn Beck program.
Hi, guys. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you, dear. That last gentleman was a walking, living, breathing exemplar of you never know where your life is going to touch somebody else's.
Hey, can I tell you something also, Judy?
Yes, dear.
A walking example of don't ever count anyone out.
Absolutely.
How many times did a friend approach him about God, about politics or whatever, and always a dead end? Until a friend hands him, in this case, my book, and says, you have to read this chapter on liars. And look at what that did.
Yep.
Don't ever... Pat counted me out on God a long time ago. And now God calls me and talks to me about how much he really is disappointed in Pat. But that's a different story. So Judy, go ahead.
Well, he's also an answer to one of my prayers and I've been praying for people like him, that the scales would fall from their eyes. And that it would be the start of a third great awakening in this country that you're always talking about.
Yeah.
What I called to talk about was that for the first time in my life and my husband's life, we voted third party.
Wow.
This past presidential election. It was a split household. I voted Constitutional Party. My husband wrote in Evan McMullen.
How are you feeling, Judy, about, because I know a lot of people, and I do. I have a lot of hope that what I'm seeing, is he's putting things together that things are going to be good.
I'm cautious. My prayers are with him. My prayers are also that the pastors who convince their congregations to vote outside their comfort zones will actually be proven right.
Yeah.
I'm confused about the Romney pick for Secretary of State, only because I think he's miscast in that part. I think he would be more useful to everyone in the Treasury, because this is a man who reads Wealth of Nations for fun.
Yes. But he is also a pretty big progressive. Mitt Romney and I, there's no love lost between us. I respect him a great deal, but he is a very big progressive. So I'd rather not have a progressive in the Treasury.
I would rather not have a progressive at all. But the person I would like to see as Secretary of State is John Bolton. I'm interested to know your reaction to him.
I love John Bolton.
I think he would clean out the swamp in the State Department.
I think John Bolton would be fantastic at that. In fact, I think he might be the most qualified. If you're looking to drain the swamp, he might be the most qualified to drain the swamp in the State Department. He gets that entirely. However, there is a problem with John Bolton on one front, and that is, how does he work with Donald Trump? Really, how does betray us?
It's funny because every candidate that's been listed for the Secretary of State position were all passionate supporters of the Iraq War.
And I don't think John Bolton, I can't imagine.
The biggest supporter of the Iraq War.
And so I don't know how he fits with Donald Trump on that. I'd like to know his position on Russia. Petraeus.
But they're all strong on. I mean, all of these candidates would be, I would think, strong on Russia.
Do you think
against Russia? And it's like it seems to be in direct, disagreement with the president of the United States. And not to mention, it wasn't like Donald Trump said, "Hey, I didn't agree with the Iraq War." He said it was the biggest disaster this country has ever done in the last 100 years. I mean, this is not a man who was just like, Iraq, maybe we shouldn't have done it.
We were for the Iraq War. I'm not for the Iraq War now. I mean, there could, you can also say.
You think John Bolton has changed his mind on that? I don't.
I don't know.
I would be surprised. We'd have to. I mean, we've had him on the show before. Maybe we can have him on again.
And, we should have him on.
Because I don't think he's changed his position on whether the Iraq War was.
See if we can get John Bolton on tomorrow or something.
Gentlemen, I have two more questions.
Yeah.
I've not seen or read anything where it shows exactly how third parties did this past election, besides the fact they lost fabulously. I was wondering how Stu, because I really thought this would be an election for them to kind of
they blew it.
They totally blew it.
Yeah, they blew it.
All of them?
They blew it. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, libertarians did better than they ever have, right, Stu?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was. There's a lot. They're going to. I mean, John Johnson would cheer the fact that they got, I think, 4 million votes, something like that. I mean, it was.
But I think this was the year for the Libertarian to actually.
They could have made serious
inroads, but they
double-digit
not to.
support.
Yeah. Finished about 3%. They were at 12, 13% for a good chunk
until
of
people
the campaign.
found out who he was.
Yeah.
And it was a problem.
Judy, thank you very much for your call. Now this, are you able to see if your home is safe while you're at work or while you're on the road this holiday? What about when you're on vacation? Simply Safe Home Security now has the new Simply Safe Security Camera. So this allows you to see everything that's going on in your home. But more importantly, at least for me, is if somebody opens up a door, or if you have the glass break sensors, somebody breaks glass, the camera turns on, records, and then saves it. So when the police come, it not only dials the police, it then shows the police exactly what happened, what triggered the alarm. That is fantastic for everybody but people like Jeffy, who, I'm not saying is breaking into anybody's houses, but insurance fraud. But there might be other things, insurance fraud, that are going on. Simply Safe will call the police. I'm sorry, what was that, Jeffy? And will take the video and show it to the police. Brand new camera system, state of the art. You will not believe how inexpensive it is to protect your home the new way, wirelessly, with SimplySafeBeck.com. Go there now. SimplySafeBeck.com. That's SimplySafeBeck.com. Several trees?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When did that tradition start?
I don't know.
Because we have 2 trees, too.
We don't have 2 big trees, but we have 1 big tree.
Yeah, we have 1 big tree.
Small, smaller trees around the house.
That's interesting.
I mean, the point is, I love Christmas, and especially after this last year, I am ready. I mean, 2016, even if you like the results of the election more than anything in the world, take everything else. It sucked. It was a crap year, and I'm ready for it to be over.
Mm-hmm. So I went to this place, I think it was a Walmart, to buy my Christmas tree. I ran into the grumpiest tree salesman of all time. Of all time. I have to share. It so much so that my daughter said, "Dad, why don't we just buy fake trees from here on out?" I mean, do you remember when you were a kid? You didn't want the fake tree.
You wanted the real one.
You wanted the real one. No. Grumpiest tree salesman alive.
All right. Liberty Safe is having a huge Black Friday sale going on right now through December 2nd. You can save up to $500 on big Franklin 50 Liberty Safes.
Yeah, I got mine a few months ago, and as soon as I got home and put it in, and we started loading it up with our stuff.
And I told you.
And you said it, a million times. My first complaint, I didn't get a big enough one.
Yeah.
Happens every time.
It's already
it is the
full.
number one complaint. In fact, I think the only real complaint that Liberty gets.
Yeah.
I should have bought a bigger one.
Yeah, it becomes a conversation point of the whole house, too. When people come over and visit, they ask about it.
Oh, definitely.
It
looks so great.
It really does.
I mean, not
People
only are
put
they
them in
super
their
practical.
living rooms.
Yeah, they're nice.
Liberty Black Friday sale going on right now to December 2nd. Go to libertysafe.com. You can get additional savings by typing in the name Glenn. That's with 2 N's, by the way.
Oh, boy.
Discover the peace of mind that comes from owning your own Liberty Safe. Go to libertysafe.com and save big. It's libertysafe.com, libertysafe.com.
The new transportation secretary.
Somebody fresh, somebody new, somebody
is
exciting.
Elaine Chao.
Now, in case you don't know who Elaine Chao is, she was with the Bush administration. We all remember that. But we should also remember Chao is her maiden name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
McConnell is her married name.
Yes, this is she is married to the Senate Majority Leader,
Mitch McConnell.
Mitch McConnell.
Now, my guess is this is Donald Trump wanting to make sure his $1 trillion stimulus package is passed.
I mean, think about that. The person outwardly advocating for the $1 trillion stimulus plan of infrastructure spending will be Elaine Chao, who is married to the person who needs to get it passed in the Senate.
So if you're into the $1 trillion stimulus package, this is a brilliant move.
Seriously, it is.
It is. It's a brilliant move.
And Elaine Chao is not she's a very establishment figure. She was the Secretary of Labor under George W. Bush. But, again, not a terrible, awful pick, generally speaking. I mean, I don't think there's... But, I mean, when you run on a campaign on Drain the Swamp, it's a curious pick, to say the least.
He's not going to drain the swamp for the politics.
Not of Republicans.
No.
Republicans aren't part of the swamp.
No, wait a minute.
Come
yes,
on.
They are. That was his whole case.
There's 2 things. First of all, I think the swamp he really is targeting, at least the one that connects with the American people, is the press. That's the swamp that he really targeted, was the press.
Well, no, but this,
I think that's true.
Partially. I think, though, Paul Ryan was a big part of that. That class of, establishment Republicans was always a big part of that.
Yes.
But
as long as he's beating on the press and he's getting through what he wants to get through, I think this is a very strategic move. The second thing is the press was the swamp. Yes, Paul Ryan and all that stuff was the swamp.
At one time.
I
don't think they're the swamp anymore.
No,
I think, right, if I may be really Machiavellian, not that anyone in this administration would be Machiavellian at all.
No.
But if I could be really Machiavellian, let's try to think like the Trump advisors might think. You want to drain the swamp. You want to get rid of them. There's two ways of doing it. One, take them on head on and go and be with their biggest enemies and take them on. However, their biggest enemies are also toxic to everyone else. Their biggest enemies, the establishment, Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, Amash. You look at those Tea Party guys and you can side with them, but then you've got the government shutdown, you have a failed coup attempt of the Republican Party. Is it possible, by the way, those people are also the people that could run against me in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So is it possible that the enemy of my enemy is my friend? And this time, the enemy of my enemy, the real enemy, because I've got a double enemy here. I've got the Ted Cruzes and the Justin Amash and the Mike Lees who have never stood with me in any real meaningful way. Maybe they're my bigger enemy because Justin Amash could run for president in 2020. Ted Cruz could run for president in 2020. I certainly don't want to heighten them. I don't want to make them more important. I don't want them to grab the glory and the reins of the Senate because then they'll have something to hang their hat on. Again, I'm thinking Machiavellian.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't I use them as my enemy and befriend my other enemy and make the enemy of my enemy my friend and ride the Mitch McConnells who will never see me coming. And by the time I off their enemy, they're going to be so in my web that I've got them in a cocoon anyway. They're not going anywhere.
That could well be, but that's exactly the swamp that we all hate.
Right.
It is just that whole convoluted maneuvering in Washington.
Oh, but
what we all just
it always works out perfectly.
Yes, every time, right?
It might work out this time.
But
this guy is good at
Obama did similar things.
He is good at this.
When he was elected, he put he hated Hillary.
Look,
he did. He made her Secretary of State, though.
So
we never close.
That the Jimmy Carters, the Bill Clintons, Bill Clinton is not a Marxist revolutionary. Hillary is more close to a Marxist revolutionary than Bill is. Mm-hmm. I can't think of a Democrat that was in the Senate that was a real Marxist revolutionary back in the 80s. Do you? Ted Kennedy, he wasn't a Marxist revolutionary.
No.
He was just a big progressive, okay?
Yeah.
Look who is really running the Democratic Party now. Look who has the real power. The Marxist revolutionaries
do.
Okay? So they went in and made the enemy of my enemy friends. They went in and said, look, buddy, everybody but Joe Lieberman will be buddies with you. Come on, we're on the same team. Let's fight. Mm-hmm. And it was only Joe Lieberman, really, that said, wait a minute, hang on just a second. There's no place anymore for people like me. Look who's around me now. It worked for them. Why wouldn't it work for Donald Trump?
I think there's a lot of. I mean, Reagan and Bush got up past personal disagreements quite a bit, and some ideological disagreements as well. But I mean, Clinton and Obama, generally speaking, agreed. I mean, they were their fight was more about personality and power and things like that. Whether this person who had only been in the Senate for a few years can be president, or should we go? There was a different debate there. There's a significant, what we thought was a significant disagreement between many of the people that Trump is nominating and what he's actually saying he wants done. So I mean, when you say drain the swamp, yes, he can say it the media all he wants.
So let me just play devil's advocate here, because I mean, you're in Washington D.C. You got to get something done. You can either be the bully on the block, which I think a lot of people expected Donald Trump to be, and just be the guy who's like, I don't care. I'm going to the American people. I'm going over all of your heads. Okay, or you can be more strategic and more Machiavellian and say, okay, how do I cobble together a coalition? That's the smart way to do it, is you cobble together a big enough coalition. Whose side can I bring in to be able to get the big things done? Because once I get a few big things done, if he passes $1 trillion stimulus, we know from Barack Obama, government starts to work for you. You're paying over $1 trillion. You get a lot done.
I mean, I don't know that I'm criticizing this as a strategic move. I mean, I wouldn't say if you want to pass $1 trillion spending stimulus, yes, of course you hire the wife of the Senate Majority Leader. Yes. Of course. Okay. Yes. I mean, it's a great strategy. I don't think that's what people who voted for Trump were looking for.
I don't know.
Per se.
I don't know.
No way.
Well, I don't know either. I mean, but
I don't know. If you listen to Stephen Moore, have you read what Stephen Moore is saying? Stephen Moore is, I mean, here's the guy who is a small government, free market guy. Started, not the American Enterprise Institute, but what's the other one that he started? Anyway,
I'm not sure. He's been involved in all the conservative.
Right. He is a huge small government, free trade kind of guy.
Yeah, his book, Wealth of the States, I think it's called, is a fantastic book about how small government policies work better than big government.
He's now pushing for $1 trillion stimulus package.
He's weird. He's saying, well, if the people want it, they should get it. I mean, I don't know if it's a good idea, but if the people want it, they should get it.
It's because they think that now, this time, this particular stimulus plan, where the money will go where it's supposed to go.
Right. And so I say to you,
it's still the government.
I say to you, though,
go well.
I'm not sure. It's not what I wanted, but I'm not sure the people who voted for Donald Trump are against $1 trillion stimulus package.
Well, I think he campaigned on it, so they must be for it at some level. But I think what I wasn't talking about that particular policy. I'm talking about sort of that we build coalitions by doing favors for people's wives. I mean, I thought that was the type of thing that the Trump that was drain the swamp. Because if you look at what drain the swamp as a policy he laid out, it was stopping lobbyists from getting work afterwards, stopping government favors, stopping foreign donations.
That's the way things get done. We're going to stop that.
That was, that's what he kept saying. I used to donate to these politicians. I know how this works. I'm going to be the one to stop it. And then he hires the wife of the Senate Majority Leader to pass a stimulus plan.
Because
it's a little bizarre. I mean,
I agree. But if you are voting for him, you want him to get things done. And if he's decided that's the best way to get things done.
Oh, the case you're presenting is if you worship Donald Trump and you're going to say everything he does is good, then yes, everything he does is good. I mean, I agree with that stance. You're right. I mean, I think, though, there was a lot of people who voted for Donald Trump thinking, first of all, he's much better than Hillary Clinton. And second of all, he's going to, at the very least, he'll shake up Washington. And I might not get every policy I want, and I don't agree with him on everything, but at least he'll shake up Washington a little bit. I mean, so far these picks, I think, to a lot of people's relief, have been very establishment picks.
I will tell you, when I heard Mitt Romney's name, I was like, okay, all right. I mean, and even John Bolton's name. Now, they're both radical ends of the spectrum, but I was like, okay, well, all right, there's two good guys.
Because he didn't put, like, Robert Spencer, the head of the alt-right thought.
Right.
Like, he didn't give him a job, which is nice. I think we all agree on that. But again, the Bolton one is another interesting thing. Bolton is a smart guy. Bolton is a guy who,
but he's a war guy.
And he is an anti-establishment guy in defense circles to some level because he's a little too hawkish.
Yeah.
He's a little too aggressive. He wrote in his own book that he was frozen out of some of the Iraq war stuff because everyone was afraid he was going to be on the Cheney-Rumsfeld side rather than the Powell side. Okay, he was on that side of that disagreement. Now, Powell was for the war, but they were afraid.
I am convinced that he's only on that list, not seriously.
You don't think he's going to get it?
I don't. I don't think he's a serious contender. I think he's only on that list because of the money.
Do you think Romney's a serious contender? Or is this all just a ploy to make it look like he considered everybody, including enemies, like Romney, because I'm a big enough man to do that, and then he just goes to Giuliani?
Don't you think that's smart?
Yeah, it's smart.
That's probably fine, and that's
I think that's smart.
Well, there's two different ways to look at it. Because you also have the Romney thing. Maybe he's taking it seriously. He's trying. There's been leaks to the media from the Trump campaign saying Trump is the guy who wants Romney. Everyone else around him doesn't want Romney. Trump is the guy that wants Romney. Now, I think that fits into the idea that you're trying to make it look like Trump is the one really considering it, and maybe at the end he'll you know what? Everyone around me convinced me it was not a good idea because the people voted for me for a different reason. There'd be a way for him out of it. There's also the thing that people have floated, and it certainly fits with some elements of the Trump campaign, that they just want to keep everyone that opposed him loudly. They want to do the Lucy football thing and pull the football out as soon as they get close to getting the gig and embarrass the hell out of them and crush their hope and humiliate them. I don't know if he's...
I don't think that. I
mean, he certainly has been that guy his whole life. I mean, look, I think even he in his own books has talked about that. That, it is dog eat dog and you do what you have to do. And I don't know that he's doing that here.
I hope not. I don't think so.
I kind of think he wants to give the impression that, look, I'm looking at everybody. And he may very well choose
I think that's
these
good.
people. Because I would say before the campaign, or before he started naming these people, Romney was an absolute no. Though when you're picking the Senate majority's wife for the head of transportation, maybe Romney is a yes. Maybe all you're doing is building coalitions, and you're going to push these people into doing what, you're the president. You get to tell them to do whatever you want them to do. And maybe having establishment figures vouching for you rather than Steve Bannon is a positive. I think strategically it makes a lot of sense to do these things. But, Bolton is a perfect example. In 2015, this is him on the Iraq war. The thing Donald Trump said was the worst decision we've made in a century, basically. He said it was the biggest disaster we've had in American history.
George Bush was evil.
Right.
And a war criminal.
Right.
Well, hang on just a second. Those are two separate things. Don't agree with that. But can you name a bigger disaster than our Middle East posture of the last 15 years?
Well, first of all,
other than our Middle East posture,
it's been the only
years.
Well, our economic posture has been pretty bad too, so it'd be tough to choose between.
Right,
but at least in the top five,
it's been bad.
Yeah.
If they would have conducted the war as we were told they were going to, if it was fought like World War II to win and win quickly and get the hell out, then that would have been great.
And I'm not
They don't do it that way anymore, and Trump won't either because nobody can anymore.
And again, Bush wasn't the only thing we've had. The headline story of the past 15 years is the Middle East. So but he was talking about the last 100 years.
Yeah, I know.
And so you're going way back. There's been lots of stuff that have gone on over that period, and I'm not even trying to be critical of Trump's assessment of that. Like, I don't agree that it's the worst disaster, but who cares what I think? He's the president of the United States. He agrees that it's the worst disaster of the past 100 years. Why are you bringing in someone who still to this day, knowing the outcome of it,
still thinks
it's the right thing to do? Bolton still to this day thinks the right thing to do, and said the people who say, things would have been much better if you didn't overthrow Saddam miss the point. That person he's talking about is Donald Trump. Trump has said that exact thing.
Yeah.
Now, again, I'm not criticizing his assessment of that story.
Yes, you are.
Because that's what you do, stupid.
Yep.
Here comes the Trump bashing again.
Let me play devil's advocate here.
Mm-hmm.
I can understand John Bolton's motivation and going in and saying, okay, Mr. President, Mr. President-elect, you don't understand the nuance of my position. Because leaving him in, it's not a vacuum there. So things would have changed this way and this way and this way. And if you could get Donald Trump to go, okay, I don't know if I agree with you, but you could make that argument. You make that argument. But let's talk about where we go from here. And if there's agreement there, why not have John Bolton. And on John Bolton's side, why wouldn't he, even if he disagrees with the president, unless it's vehement disagreement on the future, why wouldn't you get in there and say, look, I can help you drain the swamp. The real problem is the State Department. And I know where the bodies are buried at the State Department. And I got to clean that baby out. And we can really make some real changes, because the real changes, what you're talking about, what you talked about on the road, on the campaign trail, was that we are interventionalists. And the reason why is because of this damn State Department. We wouldn't have been sitting in the situation in the Middle East had we not been interventionalists in the 1940s.
But Bolton is an interventionalist. That's the problem.
Okay, well, I'm trying.
He doesn't agree with that assessment. I mean, and it's not a criticism of Trump or Bolton. It's just a matter of, if you want to have people around you, I'm not saying you can't have disagreement, but that is a fundamental disagreement. People here, George Bush's brother came out in the campaign and said, I wouldn't have gone into Iraq knowing what I know now. John Bolton said he still would.
I'm going to give you a real life example out of politics on why that is really important, coming up in just a second. First, let me tell you about American Financing.
American Financing Corporation, NMLS 182334, www.nmlsconsumeraccess.org.
Holidays are supposed to be a time of joy, but I know a lot of people, for different reasons, it is a time of real depression. It is hard with memories. It is hard because there's so much pressure on it being the greatest, and especially if you are in debt. Stop. You can get out of debt. Have you considered refinancing your home? Lowering your interest rate can save you as much as $500 to $1,000 every month. Then you can take that money and pay off those debts. American Financing's mortgage consultants, salary-based. They'll specialize in solutions. They are not counting commissions. 866-750-6551, AmericanFinancing.net, AmericanFinancing.net, 866-750-6551. Our hearts go out to the people in Gatlinburg and surrounding areas. There is a horrendous fire going on. Seeing the videos of the people that are escaping from their homes at night.
I mean, fires, the whole area has been under a drought for so long now that it's just going up in smoke.
So our hearts and prayers are with the people that are affected by this, and especially this time of year, to lose your home and everything. I mean, it's bad at any time, but
it's bad. The videos. There's one video that I put on Facebook that someone had posted. Their escape video as they leave their house and they're driving down this road. I mean, it looks like it would be a hard road to drive down at night, right, even in normal circumstances. But on both sides of them, there's just at times a wall of fire.
Imagine how frightening that is. That you're trapped in this. What's happening in Israel too, and you know who's doing it in Israel? It's terrorists that have set Israel on fire. With what we saw yesterday, this is such an obvious tool.
No, we don't know their motivation.
No, I'm not saying
in either case, really. I mean, Israel, Ohio State, we don't know their motivation.
Thank you.
No, we don't understand.
Thank you.
We don't understand.
I was standing in an airport last night.
Somali refugee, yes, he wrote down his motivation, apparently, on Facebook postings.
Yeah, but...
But what's the deeper message he was trying to send?
I was standing in an airport yesterday, and I'm waiting to board a plane. And I'm hearing Wolf Blitzer basically say that. And everybody's watching Wolf Blitzer. And I look up and I hear him and he says, but we don't really know. I mean, there's a lot of people that feel, and I just went, oh dear God. Everybody turned to me like, go. Go. Just do it now. Go. Say it. We want to hear it.
Because we talked about this yesterday a little bit, but there was a report on CNN in which they're talking about how a woman in California, because of the election, for the first time decided to take off her headscarf because she was so intimidated by because of people, I guess, from the Trump election stance. Number one, it's interesting because we've been told since 9/11 that was their constant stance, that they were being discriminated against. And apparently that was all a lie. It only started now at the 2016 election.
You know what really bothers me is the Miss Minnesota pageant? While the press is saying all this stuff about us, the Miss Minnesota pageant just happened, and the Miss Teen Minnesota, she was wearing a burkini. Nobody had a problem with that. You don't see anybody here that we're the haters, right?
All right.
Nobody was having a problem with that. Okay, so you know what's crazy? If my wife would have, entered the, Mrs. America pageant, and she was to do a swimsuit thing, she would wear, something less revealing. She would not wear a bikini, okay? If the press found out about that, they would say, I'm just me doing this monologue. My wife doesn't wear a bikini. And I would love her to, but we don't. It's our faith, okay? She doesn't wear sleeveless dresses. It is almost impossible for her to go out and find a nice dress that has sleeves on it. We don't do that. The press and the left and the culture would mock me and ridicule me and my faith from now until the end of time. But someone can wear a burkini, which we don't have a problem with. The average American doesn't really care.
Wear what you want.
Wear whatever you want. If that's what your religion says, okay. But the press makes it into such a brave and great deal. No, it's not. Why can't you write the story the way it should be written? Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. Why is it you hold up one and you tear down the other?
I mean, listen to these quotes, though. I wanted to pray out in the open, but I was scared with everything going on in the media. I'm a Muslim. It's not what the media portrays me to be. If people look at me, a Muslim, praying, I don't know what they're going to think. What's going to happen?
Oh, this is the guy. This is not the girl, right?
I'm giving away the ending, yes.
Okay, yeah.
But I don't blame them. It's the media that put that picture in their head, so they're just going to have at it, and it's going to make them feel uncomfortable. I was kind of scared right now, but I just did it. I relied on God. I went over to the corner and I just prayed. Being portrayed as this, oh gosh, these horrible haters just can't look at these normal Muslims and be okay with it. As you point out, that's not the CNN story. That's the Ohio State guy who tried to stab 11 people.
This is the quote that Wolf said, well, I mean, look how far he's been pushed. And that's when everybody at the airport looked at me like, get him.
Kill.
Because of that. I'm listening to that, and I looked at my wife and I said, it's the same damn conversation on television that we have had since September 11th. The same conversation. How does this guy in August say, I'm not a terrorist. I'm not a terrorist. And I don't like it when people look at me like I'm a terrorist. And by the way, when did he come into the country? 2 years ago? So I don't like it when people think that I'm a terrorist. He says this in August, but I'm just going to have faith in God. In December, he becomes a terrorist? Hello?
People are a tad skeptical of this.
A tad skeptical.
And it's funny because the CNN report goes on at the end to say she had to take self-defense classes, and she just wants to have the basic human right that we guarantee in this country, freedom of religion. So they've discovered the First and the Second Amendment in one story.
Freedom of defense.
Wow.
And freedom of religion.
All of a sudden, they just love that Constitution.
That is the problem. This is the problem that I have had with the press recently, because I'm really trying my hardest to counsel them not to make the same mistakes that I made. Don't do that. And I'm sitting down and I'm watching the Macy's Day Parade. And here comes everybody's favorite singer. Oh, she's a hit with the whole family. She's blah, blah, blah. I don't even know her name. And my wife says, you have got to be kidding me. And I said, what? Who is she? The donut licker. Remember her?
Oh, yeah. Adriana.
Yeah. She licks. Yeah, Grande. She licked the donut, put it up and said how much she hated the country. And that's what they get anyway.
She was high, though, so.
Yeah, all right, okay. Imagine if I would have licked a donut in a store, licked it, and said, you know what, they all voted for Obama anyway. That's what they get. I wouldn't be able to buy a postage stamp.
No, you would not.
I wouldn't be able to watch the parade in front of Macy's.
To be fair, she looks better than you.
Yeah, I get it.
Yes.
And that is the problem.
Yes.
The problem is you can't tell me. You know what America feels like? That we are in a relationship with an abusive parent. And the press is the abusive parent, telling us to live our lives one way. Do as I say, not as I do. And when they want to say, look, I'm completely reasonable when I drink. That's what you're not responsible. So you shouldn't drink ever. And I'm responsible. Yeah, Mom, that's because it's 5:30 and that's your first drink of the day. Let's check back with you at 11:30 and see how you're doing. Let's see you at 7:30 and see if you can say that. No. That's when Mama's like, don't ever drink. Don't ever drink because you're just coming out of control. Don't do it. You wreck your life. It's horrible. The next day, the next morning, Mama's saying, don't you dare drink. You're irresponsible. That's the way I feel about the media. Do as I say, not as I do. And I for instance, the media made a big deal out of me saying that I support Black Lives Matter, the people, not the people who are running it, the leadership of Black Lives Matter. I support some of the people that feel like there is a real problem going on in their community, that are not burning it down, are not chanting kill the police, have nothing to do with that, nor do they want anything to do with that. They just see a vehicle that is getting attention and they want someone to hear their cries for help. I agree with those people. I'll stand with those people, but not Black Lives Matter. Well, first, the media, thanks to Breitbart mainly, but the media takes my position and distorts it. Then when I say, no, I don't agree with the leadership. Oh, well, you think that those guys are radical revolutionaries, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, have you read their stuff? Oh, okay, Mr. Conspiracy Theorist. Did you hear what Black Lives Matter said about Castro yesterday?
Yes, in part they said, we're thankful that he provided a space where the traditional spiritual work of African people could flourish, regardless of his belief system. Rooted in collective vision. And when we bind ourselves together around quests for infinite freedom of the body and the soul, we will be victorious. As Fidel ascends to the realm of the ancestors, we summon his guidance, strength, and power as we recommit ourselves to the struggle for freedom.
I got it.
Pick up the mantle.
Unbelievable.
Anti-capitalist, anti-West, communist.
Yes.
Okay. So let me just say this, first of all, to those supporters of Black Lives Matter who just want their voices heard because their community is on fire and they don't want cops dead. They just want some help and someone to listen to them. You have to distance yourself every step of the way from the leadership of Black Lives Matter. You can't stand with them. You are standing with, I don't know who these people are, but they are anti-Israel, they are pro-Castro, they are anti-American, they're holding the banner of socialism, Marxism, communism. They are dangerous people. It's why I don't stand with the leadership of Black Lives Matter, but I do stand with anyone who says no one is listening to my community and I am disenfranchised. Stay away from these people. On the flip side, may I say to the right, please understand that there are people, just like apparently there were people in the Tea Party that didn't believe in small government, didn't believe in the Constitution. Maybe they were there because of racism, but they were a very small minority that we said weren't the real, they weren't even there, we said. We didn't even see them. There are a ton of people in Black Lives Matter that are not a part of this anti-Israel, pro-Castro, pro-socialism, anti-capitalism, anti-police movement. They just want their voices heard. The media will continue to try to keep us separated by blurring the lines of who you are and who they are. Disregard the media. Listen to people and take them for what they say, because we're living in a time where the real killers, the real anti-capitalists, the real communists, they're willing to say it all. Take them at their word. Stand with the people who just want to be heard and believe that all men were created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain rights that no man can change. And now this, Goldline. The media has been telling you for a while now that the economy is fine. That's another thing I had a problem with the media. I've heard the media recently say, you know what, maybe we have made a mistake. Maybe we have given the president too much rope. Maybe we didn't question enough. Maybe we should change that now. Oh, you think? And now you're going to do it. And maybe you'll go too far this time, and maybe in 4 or 8 years, you'll think maybe we should give them a little more rope. Anyway, they've been telling you how good the economy is. No man can fix this economy. No matter, Donald Trump can be the greatest, he could be Jesus. Well, no, okay, he'd be St. Paul. Jesus could fix it. I don't think any of the apostles could. The economy is going to be told to you after, let's say, January 20th on how bad the economy really is and how bad the jobs numbers are and how bad things are going to get. First, don't let them spook you. Know the facts. It is bad. You've known that for a while. And no matter what happens, things are going to have to correct themselves, and that could be painful. I want you to please consider gold at Goldline, 1-866-GOLDLINE, 1-866-GOLDLINE, or goldline.com. Tomorrow I'm going to have a guest on. I'm going to talk about the cashless society that the media is not paying attention to. Cashless society. It's real. Protect yourself. Call Goldline, get all the important risk information to find out if it's right for you. Goldline at 1-866-GOLDLINE or goldline.com. Glad that you are here. We didn't get to our Daniel Craig or our Sean Connery argument, but it's clear it is Daniel
Sean
Craig.
Connery. It's Sean Connery. That's clear, right?
No, it's Daniel Craig.
The young Sean Connery was an awesome James Bond.
No.
Awesome.
He was the best until Daniel Craig came along. And Daniel Craig said, I'm not doing it. There's no amount of money that can make me do another James Bond. Daniel, if I were part of the broccoli family, I would find that amount of money that I could offer you.
And I think they keep going back and looking for that amount of money.
I think they're going to.
He just said recently that, I'm not saying I'd never do it.
There is an amount of money.
There is an amount of money.
There's just nobody better than Daniel Craig. I'm sorry.
Roger Moore.
Have you watched one of those?
Timothy Dalton.
Right?